Well, we are reading through the story of the Bible, and we come now to the Gospel of Matthew. The first of the Gospels that we're going to read is, as we read through the story of the Bible, Matthew is a wonderful Gospel. It is the first of the Gospels, and so we might ask, why is Matthew the first of the Gospels in the New Testament? And that is for a couple of reasons. One, it seems to be in many ways the most complete of the Gospels. It has the beginning of the life of Jesus all the way to the end, and a lot of seems to have the whole story of the life of Jesus. It also is a perfect transition book from the Old Testament to the New, because Matthew goes out of his way to point out a number of different ways that Jesus fulfills the Old Testament prophecies. So in this sense, it's a perfect transition book between the New Testament. Now, for example, Matthew has the most Old Testament quotations in it. There are 65 of these and 130 total allusions to parts of the Old Testament. So the Gospel of Matthew is 28 chapters long. That makes it the longest of all the Gospels. It has a genealogy in it. It recounts the heritage of Jesus and his families. And so Matthew goes back to Abraham. The genealogy goes back to Abraham. Matthew has a birth narrative that's told from the viewpoint of Joseph, and that's very important. Matthew also has the story of the Magi, the wise men, who are the first Gentiles to come and worship Christ after his birth. Now, one of the things that Matthew has is he has some extended sections about the teaching of Jesus, and these are wonderful. And the heart of these is the Sermon on the Mount, which is in Matthew chapters 5, 6, and 7. This really is the heart of the teaching ministry of Jesus. If you wanted an encapsulation of what Jesus taught, the Sermon on the Mount is the place to go. Now, after the Sermon on the Mount, chapters 8 through 20 in the Gospel of Matthew have various stories, various miracles, various conversations, various parables by Jesus. And so we have a number of unique stories in the Gospel of Matthew that are found nowhere else. I mentioned the story of a visit of the wise men, Sermon on the Mount. We have 8 parables in Matthew that are in none of the other Gospels. We have the story of Peter walking on the water. That's not in any of the other Gospels, so it's a great story. And we have the statement by Jesus where he says, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and overburdened, and I will give you rest." Also, the story of Peter paying taxes and the question to Jesus about taxes. That's only in the Gospel of Matthew. Well, in chapter 21, we begin the story of the final week in the Gospel of Matthew, and that goes through chapter 28. So that's 29. That's 8 chapters out of 28 are devoted to the last life in the ministry of Jesus. That's 29% of the gospel. And again, all of the gospels give more attention to the last week in Jesus' life than any other part of his life. And in this last part of Jesus' life, we have a number of other unique stories and things that are told in Matthew. For example, we have the description of the Last Judgment in Matthew 25, a great, a very memorable story. We have the dream by Pilate's wife, who speaks to Pilate, she has a dream the night before Jesus' trial. And we have the story of Pilate washing his hands. We have the death of Judas. Matthew tells that he went and hanged himself, and the money was used to purchase a field. We have the report of the guards going to Pilate after the morning of the resurrection. And we also have the Great Commission. The Great Commission, there's a commission at the end of each of the Gospels, but Matthew's is the Great Commission, and one that we often point to. Well, if you want a complete gospel, if you want to get the full picture of the life of Jesus, you could hardly do better than the Gospel of Matthew. And so the New Testament starts with the Gospel of Matthew. Again, it's a perfect transition between the Old Testament and the New. And so as you read through the Gospel of Matthew, look for the ways that Jesus fulfills the prophecies of the Old Testament. So particularly pay attention to the Sermon on the Mount. Again, a great place to get the full picture of the heart of Jesus' teaching. Well, enjoy reading through the Gospel of Matthew.